So there I was, watching the most boring war in galactic history unfold across my news feeds. And let me tell you, when a conflict makes watching paint dry seem like an adrenaline sport, you know something's gone seriously wrong with the universe. The Zephyrian Empire and the Gorblaxian Federation had been at each other's throats for exactly 47 years, 3 months, and 16 days. Not that anyone was counting. Well, except for Commander Veek of the Zephyrian 3rd Strategic Administrative Battle Group, who kept meticulous records of everything, including how many times his troops sneezed during combat operations. Veek was your typical Zephyrian officer. Picture a 7-foot-tall flamingo that went to business school and developed an unhealthy obsession with filing systems. His species had evolved from avian ancestors, which explained their colorful plumage and their tendency to squawk orders in triplicate. Every military action had to be approved by at least 14 different committees, signed in proper blue ink, and filed in the appropriate subsection of the Zephyrian Military Code, Volume 43, Appendix J. On the other side of this cosmic chess match sat General Glurp of the Gorblaxian Honor Guard. If Veek was a bureaucratic bird, Glurp was a 500-pound slug with a philosophy degree and anger management issues. The Gorblaxians had built their entire culture around concepts of honor, tradition, and doing things exactly the way their great-great-great-grand slimes had done them 3 centuries ago. Every Tuesday at exactly 1400 hours, Veek would deploy his forces in Formation 7 Alpha Gamma 12, a battle arrangement so complex it required a 40-page manual and a certified battlefield calculator to execute properly. The Zephyrians would advance in perfect geometric patterns, their rainbow-colored battle armor gleaming in the artificial light of whatever planet they happened to be destroying that week. Every Tuesday at exactly 14:05 hours, Glurp would respond with the traditional Gorblaxian counter-formation of ancestral vengeance, which mostly involved his troops arranging themselves in a large spiral and chanting the names of fallen warriors while sliming their way toward the enemy. It was about as effective as it sounds. The result? The most predictable military engagement in recorded history. Casualties were minimal because both sides had spent decades perfecting the art of missing each other with remarkable consistency. The Zephyrians' targeting computers were programmed to avoid hitting anything that might cause diplomatic incidents, while the Gorblaxians' weapons were blessed by ancient shamans who apparently had terrible aim. After 47 years of this tactical dance, both armies had basically turned warfare into an elaborate performance art piece. They'd show up, exchange precisely calibrated amounts of laser fire, file the appropriate battle reports, and go home for dinner. The war had become so routine that some planets had started selling tickets to watch the weekly engagements. But here's the thing about cosmic bureaucracy and ancient traditions. They're really expensive. The Zephyrian Treasury Department had started sending passive-aggressive memos about military spending, while the Gorblaxian Council of Elders was making uncomfortable grumbling sounds about the cost of maintaining honor in an inflationary economy. Something had to give. And that something was about to be the entire galactic balance of power, thanks to a species that had just figured out how to leave their own solar system without immediately blowing themselves up. Spoiler alert. It was us. Now, when I say both sides were getting desperate, I mean the kind of desperate where you start considering ideas that would normally get you committed to a psychiatric facility. The Zephyrian Treasury had started repossessing military equipment, and the Gorblaxian Honor Fund was so broke they'd begun selling naming rights to their battle formations. Commander Veek was having his weekly nervous breakdown in his pristinely organized command center when his intelligence officer Lieutenant Squawk burst through the door with a datapad that was practically smoking from overuse. Sir, we've discovered a new species that might solve our personnel shortage problem. Veek adjusted his reading glasses, which looked ridiculous on his beak but were absolutely regulation according to Military Fashion Code Section 12B. Explain, Lieutenant. And please use the proper briefing format as outlined in Communication Protocol Manual 7. Right, sir. According to our xenobiology department, there's this species called humans from a planet they call Earth. They appear to be bipedal mammals with an alarming tendency toward violence and something they call creativity. Our analysts believe they might make adequate cannon fodder. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, General Glurp was having his own crisis management meeting in the Sacred War Cavern of Ancestral Wisdom. The cavern was basically a cave with some glowworms and a motivational poster that said honor is earned not given in ancient Gorblaxian hieroglyphs. Great General, wheezed Elder Gloob, his slime trail still steaming from the urgent journey to deliver the news. Our scouts have discovered a warrior species that might restore honor to our dwindling ranks. Glurp's eye stalks perked up with interest. Any species that could help him avoid explaining to the council why they'd spent the equivalent of a small planet's GDP on a war that nobody was winning deserved consideration. These humans appear to have conquered their entire planet through what our anthropologists call persistent stubbornness and an inexplicable fondness for explosions. Gloob continued. They might prove useful as auxiliary forces. Here's where things get interesting. Both sides, in a stunning display of galactic timing that would make a sitcom writer weep with joy, decided to contact Earth on the exact same day. And the human they both reached out to was Captain Rex Martinez, former Marine, current freelance military consultant, and full-time purveyor of organized chaos. Rex was having his morning coffee in his apartment in Neo-Seattle when his quantum communicator started buzzing like an angry wasp. Two separate alien faces appeared on his screen simultaneously, which was awkward because neither of them had expected a conference call. "Greetings, human warrior," Veek squawked formally. "The Zephyrian Empire requires your military services for a conflict of strategic importance." "Salutations, battle brother," Glurp gurgled with what passed for enthusiasm among his species. "The Gorblaxian Federation seeks your aid in a matter of cosmic honor." Rex took a long sip of his coffee and looked at both aliens with the expression of a man who just realized he was about to make enough money to buy his own space yacht. "Gentlemen," he said, using the term loosely since he wasn't entirely sure what either species actually was, "you've got my attention. What kind of timeline are we talking about, and more importantly what's the pay scale?" Both aliens spent the next hour explaining their respective causes with the kind of passionate intensity usually reserved for arguing about pizza toppings. Veek presented a detailed PowerPoint presentation about strategic objectives and resource allocation. Glurp recited an epic poem about ancestral glory that seemed to go on for several geological epochs. Rex listened patiently, nodded at appropriate intervals, and did some quick mental math about his mortgage payments. "I'll take both contracts," he announced. The silence that followed was the kind of quiet you hear right before something explodes in a really spectacular way. Both aliens stared at him through the screen with expressions that roughly translated to "Did this human just say what I think he said?" "Captain Martinez," Veek sputtered, his feathers ruffling in bureaucratic distress, "I'm not certain you understand the nature of military exclusivity clauses as outlined in—" "Yeah, about that," Rex interrupted cheerfully. "I don't see any reason why I can't help both of you fine folks out. War's war, right? I'll bring my team, we'll sort out your little disagreement, and everybody goes home happy. Sound good?" And that, ladies and gentlemen, was how humanity accidentally became double agents in a galactic conflict without even trying. Sometimes the best military strategies are the ones that make absolutely no sense to anyone involved. 24 hours later, Rex had assembled his team in what he generously called his Tactical Operations Center, which was actually just his living room, with a really big TV and a whiteboard covered in coffee stains and doodles of spaceships. His crew consisted of 3 individuals who had somehow managed to turn military service into an art form of controlled chaos. First up was Isabella Boom Rodriguez, a demolitions expert who believed that any problem could be solved with the right application of explosives. She was currently eating cereal while sketching what appeared to be a blueprint for turning a toaster into a weapon of mass destruction. "So let me get this straight," Boom said, milk dripping from her spoon. "We're getting paid by both sides to end their war." "That's the gist of it," Rex replied, tossing a slice of pizza at the whiteboard where it stuck next to his tactical diagram of the alien conflict. "The bird people want us to help them win through proper military channels. The slug people want us to help them win through ancient warrior traditions. We're going to help them both by ending this thing before Sunday." The second member of their illustrious team was Marcus Hack Kim, a tech specialist who treated every computer system like a personal challenge and every security protocol like a suggestion. He was currently juggling 3 different holographic displays while simultaneously hacking into both alien communication networks just to see if he could. "Dude, you should see these guys' military databases." Hack laughed, his fingers dancing across multiple keyboards. "The Zephyrians have a 14-step approval process just to change the toilet paper in their barracks. And the Gorblaxians have been using the same battle plans for 200 years. It's like they're trying to lose as slowly as possible." The third member was Dr. Patricia Doc Williams, whose official title was combat medic, but whose unofficial hobby was collecting alien biological samples with the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy store. She was examining holographic images of both species with the kind of gleeful interest that made everyone slightly uncomfortable. "Fascinating," Doc murmured, poking at a 3D model of a Zephyrian respiratory system. "Did you know that Gorblaxians can actually photosynthesize when they're stressed? And Zephyrians have a secondary brain in their tail feathers that controls their bureaucratic impulses. This is going to be so much fun." Rex looked at his team with the pride of a parent watching their children successfully tie their own shoes. "Alright people, here's the situation. We've got 2 alien civilizations who've been playing the galaxy's most expensive game of tag for almost 50 years. They're both broke, they're both bored, and they're both convinced that hiring humans is going to solve their problems. Are we going to solve their problems?" Boom asked, now sketching what looked like a pizza launcher mounted on a tank. "Oh, we're absolutely going to solve their problems," Rex grinned. "Just not the way they think we are." Hack pulled up a tactical display showing both alien fleets positioned around a contested planet called Zarian 7. So what's the plan, boss? Do we go in guns blazing or do we try the diplomatic approach first? Why not both? Rex replied, which was becoming his standard answer to most questions. Here's what we're going to do. Boom, I want you to prepare a symphony of explosions that spells out surrender now in 17 different languages. Make it artistic. Can I use fireworks? Boom asked hopefully. Boom, you can use whatever makes you happy as long as it's loud and colorful. Doc, you're in charge of psychological operations. I want you to broadcast a message explaining to both sides exactly how their biology makes them terrible at warfare. Be scientific about it. Doc clapped her hands together with delight. Oh, this is going to be better than my thesis on why humans are medically impossible according to galactic standards. And Hack, I want you to take control of both fleets' sound systems and play something that will make them question their life choices. Hack's eyes lit up. I've got just the thing. There's this Earth music genre called dubstep that I've been dying to introduce to the galaxy. Perfect. We'll coordinate the whole operation for maximum psychological impact. The goal is to make both sides realize that continuing this war is significantly less pleasant than just talking to each other like civilized beings. As the team started planning their assault on galactic military tradition, both alien intelligence networks were frantically trying to decode the humans' tactical discussions. The Zephyrian listening post had assigned 3 different committees to analyze the strategic implications of pizza launchers and artistic explosions. The Gorblaxian shamans were consulting ancient texts to understand the warrior significance of dubstep and whether making people question their life choices was considered an honorable battle tactic. Neither side had any idea what they were in for. But then again, neither did Rex's team. The beautiful thing about human military strategy is that it works best when nobody, including the people implementing it, has any clue what's actually happening. Alright, team, Rex announced, raising his energy drink in a toast. Tomorrow we end a 47-year war in time for the Sunday game. Who's ready to make some aliens very confused? The answering cheer was enthusiastic, slightly unhinged, and probably audible from orbit. Somewhere in the cosmic background, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, sensing that things were about to get very, very interesting. The Battle of Zerion 7 was supposed to be the most important military engagement in recent galactic history. Both sides had spent months preparing for what they expected to be a decisive confrontation that would finally tip the balance of their eternal conflict. Commander Veek had positioned his fleet in the majestic formation of administrative excellence, a battle arrangement so complex it required real-time consultation with the Zephyrian Department of Geometric Warfare. His ships hung in space like a living constellation, each vessel precisely positioned according to regulations that had been refined over centuries of bureaucratic evolution. General Glurp had arrayed his forces in the sacred pattern of ancestral dominance, a formation that honored the memory of every Gorblaxian warrior who had ever died in battle by making their current position tactically questionable but spiritually meaningful. His fleet resembled a giant spiral galaxy, which looked impressive but made coordinated movement about as effective as herding cats. Both commanders sat in their respective flagships, reviewing battle plans that were so detailed they could have been used as instruction manuals for assembling furniture. Everything was proceeding according to ancient protocols and modern regulations. Then Rex's team showed up in a cargo ship that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and held together with duct tape and optimism. Boss, Hack called from the pilot's seat, I'm getting about 50 different hail frequencies from both fleets. They want to know our intentions, our authorization codes, and apparently our personal opinions on the political implications of our arrival. Tell them we're here to help, Rex replied, settling into a command chair that was actually a Lazaboy recliner with a cup holder, and ask them to clear us a path to the middle of their formation. The middle? Doc looked up from her medical scanner, which she was using to analyze the alien ship's life support systems. Shouldn't we pick a side first? Doc, we're not picking sides. We're ending this thing. Boom. Are you ready with the opening ceremony? Boom grinned from her position at the weapons console, which she had modified to include what appeared to be a disco ball and a sound system that could probably be heard from 3-star systems away. Oh, I am so ready. This is going to be beautiful. The human ship positioned itself directly between the 2 massive alien fleets, which created the kind of tactical situation that made military strategists across the galaxy reach for their antacids. Both sides had protocols for dealing with enemy vessels, neutral observers, and diplomatic envoys. Nobody had protocols for dealing with a rusty cargo ship playing loud music and requesting permission to make things interesting. Attention, warriors of the galaxy, Rex announced over an open channel to both fleets. This is Captain Rex Martinez of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We're here to facilitate a peaceful resolution to your extended disagreement. There was a pause while both commanders tried to process what they had just heard. The Zephyrian translation computers started smoking from the effort of analyzing the phrase Terran Diplomatic Corps, which didn't appear in any of their databases. Captain Martinez, Commander Vik's voice crackled over the comm. Our records indicate that your species was hired as military auxiliaries, not diplomatic mediators. Yeah, about that, Rex replied cheerfully. Turns out we're really good at multitasking. Hack, would you mind introducing our friends to some Earth culture? What happened next would be studied by xenomusicologists for generations. Hack had spent considerable time curating a playlist that he called the greatest hits of human emotional expression, which began with a dubstep remix of classical music that somehow managed to incorporate air raid sirens and what sounded like a robot having an existential crisis. The sound hit both alien fleets, like a sonic tsunami. Zephyrian comm officers began frantically adjusting their audio filters, while Gorblaxian warriors started experiencing involuntary slime secretions in rhythm with the bass drops. What is this acoustic assault? General Glurp demanded, his voice vibrating in harmony with the music. It's called dubstep, Doc explained helpfully over the comm. It's a form of electronic music that humans use to express complex emotional states. Studies show it can induce temporary paralysis in species with sensitive auditory systems. While both fleets were dealing with their first exposure to human music, Boom was preparing her masterpiece. She had loaded the cargo ship's industrial fabrication system with a combination of pyrotechnics, chemical compounds, and what she called artistic flair. Initiating Operation Beautiful Chaos, she announced, pressing a button that would have made the 4th of July look like a birthday candle. The space between the alien fleets suddenly erupted in a symphony of explosions that formed letters spelling out "Can't we all just get along?" in 17 different languages, including 2 that Boom had invented specifically for the occasion. The fireworks were color-coded by language family and timed to create a cascading effect that was visible from both fleets. But the pièce de résistance was the giant smiley face that appeared at the end of the message, complete with winking animation and what appeared to be sparklers for eyelashes. The silence that followed was the kind of quiet that happens when an entire galaxy's worth of military training collides with something so completely unexpected that it causes a temporary shutdown of all higher brain functions. Did they just, Commander Vik began, use high explosives to write poetry? General Glurp finished. Yeah, that's kind of our thing, Rex admitted. We like to make an impression. Now, here's what we're going to do. Both of your fleets are going to power down your weapon systems and prepare for the most unconventional peace negotiation in galactic history. And if we refuse? Vik asked, though his voice suggested he was already afraid of the answer. Then Boom makes the next message significantly less friendly. Rex replied, while Boom could be heard in the background cackling with the kind of glee that suggested she had several backup plans involving larger explosions. Also, Doc added cheerfully, I've been analyzing your fleet compositions, and I have some fascinating observations about how your species' biology makes you fundamentally unsuited for prolonged military conflict. Would you like to hear them? Both alien commanders realized, with the kind of clarity that comes from witnessing humans turn warfare into performance art, that they were dealing with a species that approached military conflict like it was a creative writing exercise. The war was about to end, but not in any way that either side had prepared for. What followed was 5 hours of the most comprehensive dismantling of military tradition that the galaxy had ever witnessed. It was like watching a tornado made of pure chaos tear through a museum of warfare, except the tornado was telling jokes and offering everyone snacks. Hack had taken his musical assault to the next level by somehow gaining access to both fleets' internal communication systems. Instead of the usual military chatter, Zephyrian and Gorblaxian soldiers found their comm channels flooded with Earth memes, cat videos, and something called rickrolling that seemed to involve a human singing about never giving up or letting down. Sir, Lieutenant Squawk reported to Commander Vik, his voice cracking with confusion, our tactical display has been replaced with an image of a small Earth mammal wearing sunglasses. The text beneath it says deal with it, and I don't understand what we're supposed to be dealing with. Meanwhile, General Glurp was having his own technological crisis, as every screen in his flagship now displayed what appeared to be a dancing human baby, accompanied by music that made dubstep sound like a lullaby. Elder Glurp gurgled desperately, consult the ancient texts. Do any of our warrior ancestors mention protocols for dealing with dancing infant humans? But the real psychological warfare was just getting started. Doc had prepared what she called her biological reality check presentation, which she was now broadcasting to both fleets with the enthusiasm of a professor who had discovered the secret to the universe. Greetings, fellow sentient beings, Doc began, her voice carrying the kind of cheerful authority that made people pay attention whether they wanted to or not. I'm Dr. Patricia Williams, and I'm here to explain why your species are biologically incapable of effective warfare. She pulled up a holographic display showing detailed anatomical scans of both alien species. Let's start with our Zephyrian friends. Your avian ancestry gives you excellent vision and the ability to process complex information quickly. However, your flight or flight response is literally flight. When stressed, your instinct is to find the nearest committee and form a subcommittee to discuss the problem. Commander Veek felt his tail feathers ruffling involuntarily, which was exactly the stress response Doc was describing. Now, the Gorblaxians have their own fascinating limitations. Your slug-based physiology means that adrenaline actually makes you slower, not faster. Plus, your honor-based culture has conditioned you to announce your battle plans beforehand, which is essentially the military equivalent of telling your opponent exactly how you're going to hit them. General Glurp realized with growing horror that this was completely accurate. But here's the really interesting part, Doc continued, clearly enjoying herself. Both of your species have evolved sophisticated conflict resolution mechanisms that you've been ignoring in favor of this adorable military theater. Zephyrians are natural negotiators, and Gorblaxians have a biological imperative to protect their community through cooperation, not conquest. While Doc was systematically deconstructing 47 years of military posturing with PowerPoint slides and peer-reviewed research, Boom was preparing the grand finale of her explosive art installation. "Hey Rex," she called out. "I've got enough materials left for one more message. Any requests? Make it count, Boom." Something that really drives the point home. What Boom created next was a masterpiece of pyrotechnic diplomacy. Using the debris from her previous explosions as raw material, she crafted a three-dimensional holographic display that showed both alien fleets shaking hands, sharing a meal, and then working together to build what appeared to be the galaxy's largest peace monument. The display was accompanied by fireworks that played the melody of Kumbaya while painting rainbow patterns across the cosmic backdrop. It was simultaneously the most beautiful and most ridiculous thing anyone in either fleet had ever seen. "Attention, warriors," Rex announced as the final sparkles faded. "You've now experienced the full spectrum of human diplomatic techniques. We've shared our music, our art, our science, and our cultural values. The question is, do you really want to keep fighting each other, or would you rather figure out what you could accomplish if you worked together?" There was a long pause, as both commanders contemplated their options. Continue a war that had become economically unsustainable against an enemy they didn't really hate, while being serenaded by dancing babies and lectured about their biological inadequacies by a species that used explosives as punctuation marks. Or surrender with dignity and see if they could salvage something resembling their military careers. "Captain Martinez," Commander Veek said finally, his voice carrying the tone of someone who had just realized he'd been overthinking a very simple problem. "The Zephyrian Empire would like to request a formal ceasefire to discuss terms of peaceful resolution." "The Gorblaxian Federation seconds this motion," General Glurp added, sounding relieved. "Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss mutual cooperation instead of mutual destruction." "Excellent," Rex replied. "Hack, would you mind setting up a three-way video conference? And maybe find something a little more relaxing than dubstep for the background music." "I've got just the thing," Hack grinned, switching to what sounded like elevator music mixed with the sound of ocean waves. Nothing says peaceful negotiation like smooth jazz and whale songs. As both fleets began powering down their weapons systems and preparing for the galaxy's most informal peace summit, Doc was already preparing her follow-up presentation on conflict resolution through applied xenobiology. Boom was sketching plans for celebratory fireworks that would spell out "mission accomplished" in letters visible from orbit, and Rex was calculating how much money they'd just made for 5 hours of what amounted to elaborate performance art. The war that had raged for 47 years, 3 months, and 16 days was officially over. The peace negotiations were scheduled to begin immediately, with catering provided by whatever Earth food Rex could synthesize from the cargo ship's emergency rations. Sometimes the best military strategy is to make everyone involved realize that fighting is significantly less fun than whatever alternative you're offering. And nobody offers alternatives quite like humans who've had too much caffeine and access to industrial-grade fireworks. 6 months later, the galaxy had become a significantly more interesting place to live. Rex's team had parlayed their 5-hour war-ending performance into the most successful consulting business in known space. Martinez Military Solutions. "We end wars so you don't have to" had contracts with 17 different species, 3 trade federations, and one particularly aggressive mining corporation that had been having territorial disputes with a planet full of sentient crystals. Their office was still Rex's living room, but now it had a really nice coffee machine and a whiteboard that was only partially covered in explosion diagrams. "So let me get this straight," Rex said, reviewing their latest contract offer. The tentacled hegemony of Rigel 9 wants us to resolve their conflict with the Crystalline Collective over mining rights to the Sparkly Nebula. That's correct, Boom replied, already sketching what appeared to be a glitter cannon. Apparently they've been having very polite disagreements for 3 centuries. The tentacle people file formal complaints, and the crystal people respond with interpretive light shows. It's like watching the universe's most boring soap opera. I love it, Rex grinned. Hack, what's our schedule looking like? Well, we've got the podcast recording with Veek and Glurp tomorrow, then the lecture series at the Galactic Military Academy next week. Oh, and the Zephyrian-Gorblaxian Joint Colony celebration is next month. They want us to do the fireworks show. The former enemies had indeed become the galaxy's most unlikely success story. Commander Veek and General Glurp now co-hosted a weekly podcast called Bureaucrats and Barbarians, where they discussed military history, shared war stories, and occasionally interviewed other species about their conflict resolution techniques. It had become surprisingly popular among civilizations that were tired of fighting but weren't sure how to stop. Their first joint colony, New Harmony, was thriving on a planet that had previously been a contested battleground. The Zephyrians handled the administrative infrastructure with their usual obsessive attention to detail, while the Gorblaxians provided security and maintained the agricultural systems with their traditional community-focused approach. It turned out that birds who loved paperwork and slugs who valued honor made excellent neighbors when they weren't shooting at each other. Doc, how's your book coming along? Rex asked. Doc looked up from her latest research project, which appeared to involve studying the psychological effects of meme exposure on various alien species. Oh, it's fantastic. The Xenobiological Guide to Why Everyone Should Stop Fighting and Start Cooperating is already a bestseller on 43 worlds. I've got interview requests from every major science journal in the galaxy. Her follow-up paper, Humans: A Statistical Impossibility That Somehow Works, had revolutionized the field of comparative biology and made her the most sought-after speaker at academic conferences across known space. But the real success story was what had happened to galactic warfare itself. Word had spread about the 5-hour resolution of the Zephyrian-Gorblaxian conflict, and suddenly every military commander in the galaxy was terrified that humans might show up at their battles with dubstep and fireworks. The mere threat of human intervention had ended 6 different wars before they could really get started. The phrase "do you want to deal with the humans" had become the galactic equivalent of "do you really want to do this the hard way?" Rex's quantum communicator buzzed with an incoming call, and he found himself looking at what appeared to be a very nervous lobster wearing a military uniform. Captain Martinez, the lobster creature said, its voice carrying the tone of someone who was trying very hard to sound professional. I am Admiral Claxworth of the Crustacean Defense Fleet. We have a situation that requires your unique expertise. What kind of situation, Admiral? Well, sir, we've been having a disagreement with the Mollusk Empire over territorial boundaries. It's been going on for about 15 years, and we're both getting rather tired of it. We were wondering if you might be available to help us resolve things before anyone gets hurt. Rex looked at his team, who were all grinning with the kind of anticipation that suggested they were already planning their next performance art piece. Admiral, you've come to the right place. My team specializes in creative conflict resolution. When would you like us to start? As soon as possible, sir. We've heard about your methods, and frankly anything would be better than another decade of formal military posturing. After ending the call, Rex leaned back in his Laza Boy command chair and reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. Humans hadn't brought superior technology or advanced military tactics to the cosmic stage. They'd brought something much more powerful, the ability to make everyone step back and realize how ridiculous their problems actually were. You know what I love about this job, Rex said to his team. We're not actually solving conflicts, we're just showing people that there are more interesting ways to spend their time than fighting over stuff they'll probably forget about in a few years anyway. Plus the pay is excellent, Boom added, putting the finishing touches on her latest artistic explosive device. And we get to travel to exotic locations, Hack said, where I can introduce new species to the wonders of Earth's internet culture. And I get to study the most fascinating biological specimens in the galaxy, Doc concluded, while helping them understand that cooperation is literally encoded in their DNA. Rex raised his coffee mug in a toast to humanity's greatest military achievement, convincing everyone else that fighting is optional. The galaxy, it turned out, had been waiting for someone to point out that most of their wars were really just elaborate miscommunications between species who had forgotten how to talk to each other. Humans, with their talent for turning everything into either a joke or an art project, had become the universe's unofficial therapists. And business was booming. Somewhere in the background, Rex's communicator was already buzzing with their next contract offer. The galaxy, it seemed, had a lot of problems that could be solved with the right combination of explosives, memes, and the kind of cheerful stubbornness that only humans could provide. The war might have ended in 5 hours, but the peace was going to last a lot longer.